Welcome to the JAMODI podcast, where we interview coaches and leaders to find out not just what they do, but how they do what they do. Becoming the best version of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. I've watched you, golly, I don't know how many sessions, and somehow, I mean, you have 80 to 100 different athletes that you've just met within a day or two, and you're able to create a culture within that group that is it's safe for them to take chances and for them to communicate with each other, which is rare for young people to naturally do anyway. And so, what is some of your favorite culture building activities?
So, like I said, it's a million little things.
Right.
I think there's difference for me at PGC in a session or going to work with Brisbane basketball and doing something with them versus like a coach at a team in practice. I'll answer both.
Sure.
For a large group that have just met, I always take into account like they have to see that I care about them and that I know a decent amount of basketball, right? And so the first portion for day one is really that. It's like, I'm showing you I care about you. Two things. I will make their mistake on their names 6 times if I have to. But every time I make a mistake, a few kids, get bothered by it. But actually the mistake shows that I care, right? Rather than pretending that I've learned your name, I'll ask you a 5th time. And it shows, like, at the end of the day, it shows I suck at names, but it shows that I care enough to learn your name. And I think that little thing is a little cultural thing that matters, right? The second thing is I generally, when I go up to a player, my first interaction is always going to be highlight something they're doing well. And a lot of them now, they're so used to coaches doing it, like a sandwich, a positive sandwich, whatever. And they're expecting me to say something, critique. And then I just walk away and they're just like shook. It's like I pointed out, they made a mistake, but I pointed out the little, and I made a note of the mistake they made. And I'm going to keep that in my mental record or actually write it down. But my first interaction is just like about building trust. And it's highlighting something they did well. Even if it's a professional, in Australia, or if it's a high schooler in America. With groups as well, I highlight the behavior I want to see. And so collegiate and professional athletes understand this more. At the high school age stage, junior high, high school for sure, they haven't yet learned that mistakes is the road to improvement. And I actually have, with the proper technique and the right effort and all that sort of stuff, mistakes is how I get better. And so you have to highlight the people going after it. Yeah. So we might start and we're doing something, and I actually highlight, I'm like, you know what? Most coaches wouldn't recognize, but Braden's going so hard that he actually lost the ball 7 times. And it's not because he's the least skilled person. He's probably one of the higher skilled people in here, but he went after it so hard. And so I'm highlighting that behavior. And at the end of the day, like, you highlight behavior you want to see because they want our attention at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And so I create a safe space by highlighting players who are starting to buy into the culture of error. It's totally different with a team. So I coached a team out in Hawaii. I was very fortunate to work with a team. And
where was my call when you were going out there?
I just went in for the first month, and then I went in for the month before the state championship. And we won 2 state championships. It's amazing. I got to coach this team, really consult for them for 2 years, and then they said, hey, can you just come and be a part of the team for 2 months? It's a shortened season in Hawaii too. That's one the other reason I agreed to it. It's like November to February. So it's really, I just missed the middle month. And so when I went in, and this is one thing I just so respect, and I'm bringing up his name again. I've seen, and Brad Stevens is amazing, and Coach K, and I've seen the best. I've seen them all. And Brad Stevens and Coach K are up there with, and Gino are up there with culture. I think TJ Rosine is the new Don Meyer of Division II. Like, he's just so good. And so I saw him one time, second or third practice, new players. And this is like, you're establishing your culture. The guys went out for a water break, and there's a concession stand pizza thing for students nearby. And one of them went and got Powerade instead of getting water. In essence, like, I don't know, 3 cents of Powerade in a little cup. And he stopped the whole practice and brought them in. And like, it was a 20-minute thing. And it was like, we don't take things that aren't ours. We don't. And that was culture. Like, that was like, screw what's happening in basketball. this is the men we're going to be. And those are the moments where it's like, it's not even about the basketball, really. How do you foster culture? When you see a non-negotiable, you stop everything and you address that non-negotiable without having 20 non-negotiables, right? It's
right.
like, what is your culture going to sit on? What are the 3 to 4 pillars it's going to sit on? And then there's a hard line in the sand on those 3 or 4 pillars. But it's done in a way of love too. It wasn't like he was embarrassing this person. It was just like, hey, this is what we do here. And I expect the other players, sure, I'm going to make up a name. Jeremiah made that decision. But like, there's 3 other guys who went to the water break with him and said nothing to him.
Yep.
And I'm more disappointed in the leaders for that. So I honestly try to catch all the little moments. When I'm working with a team or if I'm coaching a team, I would actually try to train my assistant coach to be running either offense, and so I can just focus on one or all of it. And I'm just watching the players on the sideline. I'm watching their body language and their reaction to makes, misses, to plays. I'm watching their reaction to when a coach speaks and where the coach is explaining something. For me in my culture, one of the things I do with the Hawaii team is I always had the camera. I was always recording, and I would at times just stop it and I would just play it. I'd plug it in and say, just listen to your defensive communication for the last 20 seconds. Right. And so that's a cultural thing. It's like, how much do we talk to each other, especially on the defensive end? And there's like, okay, I'm going to record you again and we'll play it in 20 seconds. And then it's like, it's way different because they, now they can hear a piece of our culture. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can ask me specific follow-up questions, but obviously they have to know you care and trust about it. You have to highlight and celebrate the culture of error and the players who are buying into it. And then to me, it's all the milli moments of, the players made a turnover and you're laughing on the sideline. I would stop the whole practice and address that. And not to shame that player, but just be like, you're preventing yourself from getting better because you're creating a space now where if you make a mistake, we should laugh back at you. And so it's not about if Sam made the error or Jasmine made the error and you laugh. It's about you're stealing all of our improvement by laughing. And hey, I did stand-up comedy. I love comedy. I think there's a place for comedy in the season. It's a long season. You need those dudes who can make the whole team laugh. But are you laughing with or laughing at?
One thing that you said, I think might free up coaches is so like at the top of most practice plans, you're going to have the quote of the day or the culture piece of the day that we cover right at the beginning of practice. And it's almost like we check that box, culture for the day, done.
It's done.
And now all the important stuff is coming now that we have to do. But I think what might be more freeing is we have like what TJ did, we have our practice plan, but it's more of just a skeleton or a roadmap of where we could get to. But within all of those stops, we are eyes wide open looking for moments to steal and things to grab and ways to shape our culture even more. Like that's freeing to me as a guy that loves a good practice plan and has it timed out and is almost stressing at times. Slow down. If you don't get to something, it's not nearly as important as addressing something that might end up winning a game, yes, but impacting that player and your team's morale and culture later on. So I think that's a great nugget that you gave.
I appreciate it. What separates, and you've experienced some championship programs and you've seen it as well. It's like, it's not what you do, but how you do what you do. And, Gino Aram hasn't created this whole booklet of like insane games, activities, or drills that no one else has seen. It's just like how they go through 5-0 screening is so dramatically different in the energy and the communication and the approach and the hustle than any other team. And so it's like, we all get generally the same number of practice hours. Yeah. So how you do what you do is more important than what's on there, and less, but better. Like build in a 10-minute gap because you're not going to ever get that practice plan on exactly in it. So give yourself a 2-minute wiggle here, in between transitions for a question then it's like, I don't know. It's the classic, I've got too many things on my to-do list.
That's right.
Like, do 1 or 2 things well in your practice.
And you mentioned it though earlier. That's the art of it. The art of the coaching is, you have a destination. You have some things like our first week of practice that we want to have prepared for our first scrimmage. But within that, there's just so much more to the game and to the things that we're going through. Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.